Welcome to this module related to the fire, and we are going to discuss a case study of Jaipur terminal fire took place at IOCL terminal facility at Jaipur on 29th October 2009. And after the Flixbro, this is one of the most dangerous, most devastating and most catastrophic accident related to the fire. So, let us have a background of this particular facility by the description of the facility. At the time of accident, the age of the plant was around 12 years, and this plant was housed in about 120 acres of the land. Now, the plot housed the facilities for the marketing terminal of IOCL, and they were having 11 storage tanks of kerosene, motor speed, and high speed diesel. Apart from this, they were having the truck loading facilities to delivery for the delivery of these product into truck, and the product pumping facilities to the neighboring installations of Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited and Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited through pipeline. Now, apart from this, the plant accommodated the facilities for pipeline division, which operated the cross-country pipeline, that is Koyali-Sanganer product pipeline feeding to this particular terminal. And the marketing terminal occupied around 105 acres of the pipeline division facilities, which was located in 15 acres in the northeast corner of the particular facility. So, this was the Koyali Sanganer product pipeline. Here this is the Sanganer. So, this is the oil pipeline network of IOCL. So, they are having some existing product pipeline, some crude pipeline. They are well connected with the various refineries of Indian Oil Corporation. Apart from this, they are having certain LPG pipeline. So, this is the piping network of Indian Oil Corporation. Now, the location of the Sanganer was as a plot was far away from then the residential localities of Jaipur city, and at the time there was no neighboring industries or factory located within few kilometers from the plot boundary of time of installation of that particular terminal. Subsequently, a large number of industrial establishments they were developed by the state government all around the terminal area. So, you may say that they may be the other outcome of that particular accident. Now, there are certain salient features of this Jaipur terminal. It was the first automated oil terminal in the country, and this terminal was fed by the Koyali Sanganer product pipeline and received product from product. They were having 2-3 different type of product like motor split, that is petrol, high speed diesel and kerosene from the Koyali refinery. The terminal also used to receive and distribute the lube oils in drum through trucks. So, they were having the storage facilities for lube oils. Now, the terminal delivered petroleum product through the tank trucks to retail outlets and also supplied lube oil to the local market of Rajasthan. Now, this particular terminal was also supplied the petroleum product to the neighboring terminals of other oil companies like HPCL and BPCL. Now, BPCL Sanganer terminal is dependent entirely on receipt of the product from this IOCL terminal. So, because these oil companies, they are having some sort of arrangement, internal arrangement, so that they can borrow the product from one terminal and share the equivalent amount of the product from their own terminal to the other oil company. Now, earlier HPCL Jaipur terminal in Sanganer, which was in the close proximity of was also solely depend on the supplies from this facility only. So, but after the commissioning of Mundra Delhi pipeline MDPL, the HPCL's Jaipur terminal at Sanganer has been closed down for operation since the commissioning of HPCL's own pipeline terminal at Bagaru. This is only 30 kilometers from Jaipur. So you can see this the Mundra Delhi pipeline. So you can see that they are having its own terminal. Now, the IOCL crude oil pipeline, which runs from Mundra to Mathura and Panipat refinery, because in the northern belt, Mathura and Panipat, these two refineries are owned by IOCL. So they are also passed through this. That particular pipeline was also passed through this particular terminal. So a pipeline booster pumping station of the pipeline division was also located and operated within the marketing terminal of Indian Oil Corporation. So they were having a very good storage facilities. So the storage facilities originally consist of 9 tanks for petroleum products, and subsequently 2 more tanks were added for motor spirit tank, followed by 1 more tank that was not commissioned at the time of accident under pipeline division for the receiving the pipeline interface. So there are certain interface because sometimes these pipelines are attributed for more than one product. So there is some interface which is usually sent back to the refineries. Now this is the 3-dimensional plot plan. They were having this is the tank yards. This was the entrance, administrative block, account section, etc. They were having the pipelines. So in all, they were having all the tank facilities over here and there. This is the tank lorry depot. Now this is you can say the more clear form. Here they were having the high-speed diesel tank facility. There are the kerosene tank, the motor spirit tank, which was involved in this one, which was involved in that particular accident. They were having the lube warehousing apart from the security gate, and adjacent to the security gate they are having one inverter factory that is called the Genus factory, and this was the pipeline installation, and this is the tank cart loading facilities, etc. This was having the exchange pit. So while we are having the continued discussion about the storage facilities, so underground tanks, they were having the 5 in number, and each of having was the capacity of 70 kiloliters for the storage of the petroleum product. So each tank had facilities on 3 modes, and that is important, and that was the main crust of the accident. One mode was the pipeline receipt. So when the material is coming to the through the pipeline. Second is attributed to the inter-tank transfer, and third one is the dispatch. So you can say these two facilities, the pipeline receipt and dispatch, they were inlet and outlet, and this one is for the inter-tank. So when you are having 2 tanks in line, so you may connect all these 2 tanks. Apart from this, one is inlet, another one is the outlet. Now this facility was designed in a way that at one time only one mode of dispatch will be carried out, that is either tank lorry or a pipeline transfer. So this is again a very important aspect of this the designing. Now each mode of operation was achieved by a positive isolation of a tank. So the proper safety installation or proper safety devices, they were there. So isolation of the tank from other operation modes using 2 isolation valve, and they are attributed to the gate valve, and they were having a blind or a blank in between them. So the first isolation valve on the tank was provided as the motor operated gate valve, and in the subsequent slides this is referred as MOV, and the second one is the line valve, which is the hand operated gate valve and referred as HOV. Now this they were having a hammer blind valve between the motor operated valve and hand operated valve. Now they were having three push buttons, one for operating the valve when it is pushed, the other for closing the valve when it is pushed, and the third for pausing the movement when it is pushed, for stopping the valve movement. Now these valves can also be operated by means of a hand wheel, just like any other hand operated valve. So the valve was to close automatically in case of power failure as per the original design feature. Sometimes it may be violated. So at the time of the incident and for the past several years, the facility of a remote closing of the valve from control room and automatic closure of the valve on power failure has not been operational. So this facility has been made defunct since 2003. One of the main reason why this accident took place. Now let us have a look about the hammer blind valve. The hammer blind valve, there is a hollow wedge, open eye, and a solid wedge, that is a solid eye, to be used, and depending upon whether one wants to block the line or make the line through a flow like this. This is the opening and this is the complete closure. So whenever it operates, it moves like this direction. So the opening may take place, and if it is like this, then no flow can pass through this particular valve. So there are four different type of HOVs. So this is the crown wheel through which you can control the flow, either close or open. There are several other associated facilities in that particular plant, like pump house. The pump house accommodates 9 pumps, 3 numbers they are dedicated for each products: motor speed, that is petrol, high speed diesel and kerosene, and these pumps are generally electric driven centrifugal pumps. The plant was having the trunk loading facilities referred as TLF. There are 30 numbers of loading gantries are provided for truck loading of motor spirit, kerosene and high speed, and this consists of 30 loading bays with 33 loading points. They were having one exchange pit. If you recall in the plot plan, at the corner of the plot, they were having the exchange pit. So for pipeline transfer at the south battery limit, an exchange pit is provided consisting of 2 number of isolation valve. One is HOV, again with the hammer blind type of valve for the positive isolation on each of the product transfer pipeline. They were having a control room. The control room mainly consisted of a digital screen and other instruments, including emergency shutdown procedure for the entire installation. They were having a business community center. This terminal also had the business community center, which housed the backup for the corporate ERP system. And this business community center was provided with a DG set to provide the necessary power backup, which was designed to start on auto mode in case of any power failure in the center. There was a good power protection system. Now this unfortunately this fire protection system was not competent enough to cater the need of entire plant. So this fire water system for marketing division was composed of 2 number of fire water tank as a basic protocol, 3 number of main pumps diesel operated for fire water network, and foam shed and spray rings around the tanks for both motor spirit and a diesel for cooling purpose in case of adjoining product tank fire. Now you can imagine that all these activities, they were actuated at the time of accident, but they failed. So you can imagine that scenario, and you can imagine that how much quantum of enthalpy generated at the time of that particular accident. Now the fire water system was adequate to provide the primary protection for 4 hours as stipulated in oil industry safety standards. So they were very much within those standards. The fire water system for pipeline division, that was comprised of 1 fire water tank, 2 main pumps, usually they were diesel operated, fire water network, Now both the fire water system were interconnected, including the fire water tanks. They were having some entry and exit protocols. The terminal facility was provided with 3 gates, 2 on the southwest side of the plot and 1 at the northeast side. So why I am telling you all these sites, because at the time of accident, the meteorological conditions also play a very vital role. So entry was only through a single gate, that was in the southwest, and the second southwest gate is kept locked, and the northeast gate was used in terms of emergency protocol. Apart from other things, they were having the effluent treatment facilities. So oily wastewater from the pump house area and tankage area is routed via closed system to a RCC sump in the effluent treatment plant. Now it is usually then pumped with the effluent feed pumps to the inlet of tilted plate interceptors, wherein the free of oil droplets, they are intercepted and form a floating layer of oil, which is skimmed through a rotatable skimmed pipes. As far as the personnels are concerned, the Jaipur terminal worked under the overall guidance of General Manager, Rajasthan State Office. They are having the IOCL regional center at Jaipur. Apart from this, there are 10 other officers with the different responsibilities and 24 blue collar workers and 4 clerical staff. Now let us have a discussion about the operation. So this terminal usually operated in 3 shifts for the terminal operation, with the timing of 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. and 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning. The TLF, that is the trunk loading facility operation, was restricted to the morning general shift operation, that is from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The control room, that was supposed to be manned, but there was no dedicated person for it, and occasionally when all the 4 people were out in the field for different job, it remained unmanned. This is again a problematic issue. In the evening shift of October 29, 2009, the IOC petroleum oil lubricant terminal at Sanganer in Jaipur was preparing to transfer kerosene and motor spirit to the neighboring BPCL terminal. That was obviously a routine operation. So a crew of 4, 1 shift officer and 3 operators, they were manning the IOCL installation, and kerosene was lined up first, that is through pipeline, and thereafter the operating crew proceeded to prepare the motor spirit tank for pumping to BPCL installation. So in the process of lining up MS tank at around 6:10 p.m., a huge leak of the product took place as a jet of liquid from the hammer blind valve on the delivery line of the tank leading to the MS pump, that is motor spirit pump. Now this liquid petrol, which rapidly generated vapors and soon overwhelmed and incapacitated the operators carrying out the lineup operation. So they were practically helpless at the moment, because the quantum and the velocity, the pressure was so high. The shift operator or shift officer who was nearby tried to help the operator, but he too was affected by the vapors liquid and had to be removed to hospital in semi-conscious state. So you can imagine the scenario. So this is the schematic layout. This was the motor spirit tank, and that was the MOV, and this is the HOV, and this one is the hammer blind valve. So and this was the transfer pump, and this is again the same scenario. So the problem took place in synchronizing all these 3 steps. So now the standard operating sequence was to ensure that MOV and HOV, this and this both are closed. Then reverse the position of hammer blind valve so that you can have a desired scenario. Then open the HOV, this one. Then open the MOV, initially inching operation to establish the leakage from hammer blind valve body. Now the likely sequence are the MOV opened first, however desired was the HOV, but initially MOV opened first, and then hammer blind valve, this was opened, that is in the second step, and then because of lack of this synchronization, the leakage started. So the second operator, who was incidentally in the canteen at the time, also rushed to the spot, but he was also completely overpowered by the strong petrol vapors and liquid and could not be rescued. So the third operator on the shift, who was supposed to be on site, had earlier left for home for some personal work and was thus not available to initiate any rescue or mitigation step. So these two are again the contributing events in that particular accident. With none of the operating crew being available anymore for initiating any control action, the leak continued unabated, and by the time the senior staff and civil authorities could reach the site, had already engulfed almost the entire installation, making their entry not only difficult but also dangerous. So you can say that this was the initiation and this is the total propagation. So after about an hour and 15 minutes, the leak having started, there was a massive explosion followed by a huge firewall covering the entire installation. So it is estimated that in this 1 hour and 15 to 20 minutes of uncontrolled leak, about 1,000 ton of motor spirit could have escaped out, which would have generated enough vapor to cause an explosion with an equivalence of almost 20 tons of TNT. Now remember, when this huge firewall occurred, then there is maybe a generation of huge quantum of heat, and that may initiate by any modes of heat transfer, that may initiate the vapor formation and the pressure built up in the adjoining tank. So the explosion in other adjoining tanks may took place. Now this was the source of motor spirit leak. Now you can visualize there are hand operated valve, motor operated valve, and this one is the blind or blank. Now this is the main scenario. So it was not being inserted properly while the transfer took place. So let us have a look about that all three steps of this particular incident, about initiation, propagation and termination. So the source of ignition which triggered the explosion and a fire could have been found from one of the non-flame proof electrical equipment in the administrative block, or from a vehicle being started in the installation. Now remember, when vapor escapes from any kind of facility in terms of a vapor cloud, and if it is exposed to the atmosphere, it may form the uncontrolled vapor cloud. Then it's very difficult to prevent the presence of all kind of source of ignition, and moreover these vapors are under the grip of atmospheric air, so a sufficient supply of oxygen is also there. So you cannot avoid the scenario of generation of either fireball or fire. So the fire which followed the explosion soon spread to all other tanks and continued to rag for about 11 days. So that was the propagation step. The management of IOCL, they had taken a considered decision to allow the petroleum product to burn out to avoid further possibilities of accident in the installation in the interest of the public safety. So you can say that it is a let it go policy, because practically the quantum of heat was so high at the moment that they were practically helpless to extinguish the fire by the usual methods available as on date. So ultimately, while we consider the termination and discuss about the losses, so ultimately the entire about 60,000 kiloliter of petroleum products stored in the terminal, that is equivalent to about 1000 to 1200 retail outlets at the time of accident, was consumed in the fire and the installation was totally destroyed. Now, building in the immediate neighborhood were heavily damaged with a minor damage and a window panes breakage occurring up to around 2 kilometers from the site. Now, the reason was when the tanks, they were exploded, the noise or the vibration was so high that all the window panes damaged, some cracks, etc. They took place at the site. So the total loss estimated on account of the fire and explosion as reported by Indian Oil Corporation in the press, which includes the loss of the finished product, stores, fixed assets, and the compensation for the third party losses amounted to be 280 crores. 11 people lost their lives in the accident, and 6 from IOC and 5 from outsider, and several others were injured. The Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, they immediately thereafter, that is on 30th September 2009, constituted a 7-member independent inquiry committee to inquire into the incident. So in a nutshell, you can say that if the operators, they didn't follow the protocol, that means the lack of training and lack of technical competency. So let us have a discuss about the immediate cause. The immediate cause of the accident was the non-observance of normal safety protocols involving the sequence of valve operation in the line-up activity and engineering design which permitted use of a hammer blind valve, a device which is used for the positively isolation of pipeline. So they have not followed the standard operating protocol. The root causes, the basic root causes were the absence of a site-specific written operating protocol or a procedure, the absence of leak stopping devices from a remote location. This facility of remote closing the motor operated valve connecting to the tank side, which could have stopped the leak. Although some of the safety protocols, they were defunct at the time of accident. Now, insufficient understanding of hazard and risk consequences. There are certain critical factors involved in that particular plant. The critical factors which resulted the catastrophic accident are the loss of primary containment of motor spirit, that is petrol. So practically they were not in a position for the containment of motor spirit. So that's why it escaped from the storage facility. The loss of secondary containment. So the incapacitated operating person, because at the time of accident, one was away to his home and remaining persons, they were not in a position to control the things. They were not having proper mitigation measures at the time of accident. So inadequate mitigation measures. There were so many shortcomings in design and engineering specification of facilities and equipments, because when the person is not in a position to operate this HOV or MOV with the blind, then definitely there may be certain shortcomings in design and engineering specification. There was absence of operating personnel from site and also from the vital operation area, which they were not supposed to do so. Then the question arises about the responses. So information about the leak and hazard was conveyed by the security staff on site to the terminal senior manager staff and others. The state and local civil authorities, they were alerted by IOC state level officers, and within about 30-45 minutes almost all persons and agencies in the city and around had come to the site. There was a serious non-availability of self-contained breathing apparatus and a fire suit immediately. When it was not available, they left the entire response team as a mere helpless spectators in preventing the incident. So, because this accident was attributed to the vapor cloud explosion, so explosion occurred to the tune of approximately 20 tons of TNT. 9 of the total 11 tanks caught fire immediately after first explosion. Balance 2 tanks maybe at a distance caught fire after some time. So, because of regular heat transfer modes through which they caught the fire. So, decision was taken to allow the fuel, that is 60,000 kiloliter, to burn, as all fixed firefighting facilities at the location got demolished and they were not in a position to handle the scenario via the external firefighting devices. Now, this is the major timeline for the accident. Now, the sealing of tank line, walls, etc. to before 5:50 p.m. The tank handing over by pipelines to marketing, 5:50 p.m. Start of hammer blind reversal work after 5:50. Start of motor spillage at around 6:10 p.m. Rescue of operation officer between 6:20 to 6:24, and the first communication outside the terminal gave which was supplied to 6:24, and the sounding of siren after 6:30, and the formation of vapor cloud across the terminal. It took place around between 6:10 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. and a vapor cloud explosion took place at 7:30 p.m. Now, we can discuss the possible scenarios for this particular accident. The scenario 1, the motor operated valve was in open condition before the start of hammer blind reversal job. So, this may be attributed to this opened by someone any time between the previous blinding operations and on 29th October 2009. Because it is not at all possible to establish any one of the above conclusively. The reason is that whenever they started the job, then definitely they might have looked into this aspect. Then the scenario 2, the motor operated valve opened accidentally when the blind was being reversed due to the spurious signal or manually. So, among the two scenarios, scenario 1, that the MOV was open condition before the start of hammer blind reversal job, appeared to be more likely. So, when they discussed about these two scenarios, they found that this scenario is most appropriate one. Then they discussed about the source of ignition. So, as a vapor cloud is spread in such a large area, the source of fire can be anything inside or outside the installation. So, the non-flame proof electrical fittings in administration block located in the southwestern direction of the terminal or spark during starting of the vehicle at the installation, they are the probable cause of the source of fire. Now, there are certain contributing factor to this incident, that is one is non-availability of one of the shift workmen who was supposed to be on duty. So, when the investigation team carried out the investigation, they found out these are the contributing factors. Second, maybe the control room remaining unmanned due to the above things. The third one is the absence of a specific written down procedure for the works to be undertaken, and therefore the reliance on practice. Fourth may be the opening of hand operated valve before the completion of a hammer blind reversal operation. Another one is that not checking the motor operated valve for its open close status and not locking the closed position. One may be that not using the proper protective equipment while attempting rescue work. The initiation of the critical activity after the normal working hour, leading to a delay in response to the situation. Sometime another contributing factor may be non-availability of the second alternate emergency exit, And the last one is that the proximity of industries, institutes, residential complexes, etc., close to the boundary wall. So, based on all the facts and accidents, the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Government of India, they constituted an independent 7-member committee headed by Shri M.B. Lal, ex-chairman Hindustan Petroleum Corporation, to inquire to the incident. So, the committee submitted their report on 29th January 2009 and made the following observation. This Jaipur accident was first of its kind in India and the third one reported globally. So, you can assess that how much the gravity of that particular incident. So, this committee made the different conclusion on cause. The loss of containment in terms of time and quantity was never considered a credible event and accordingly not taken into the hazard identification. So, that must be the part of the hazard identification for the future study. Now, basic operating procedure for hammer blind opening was not followed. So, the overall lessons one must learn that the facilities and installations with inherently high hazards should incorporate redundancy in the safety system and ensure their upkeep at all times. The management should ensure that reliable systems are in place to give timely feedback on the current practices and the state of readiness in the different facilities. The management must ensure that identical actions are being carried out. A high priority safety from the senior and the top management groups will send the right signal down the line to ensure safety and production. High degree of operational competency should be maintained at all times by building on combined knowledge and experience of all the professional groups. The lesson from all major incidents should be shared, that may be the part of the safety review, and widely disseminated in the entire industry, preferably through an appropriate website. Now, you can have a look of the gravity of this particular accident through these photographs. Now, these tanks, they were burning and the car in the nearby location, it is burned out. Now, you can see that this is the storage tank facility. See how much the pressure being built up, so that the entire tank, which is so strength in installation, is collapsed. Now you can see like this. This is the firewall. Now this is the highway nearby that installation, so you can see the gravity of this particular accident. Now people are running around. Now, unfortunately, we should not install like this. So, these are the couple of the photographs which look, they are so, which depicts that how much the gravity of that particular accident. Now, you can see that after the accident, this was the scenario of the all tanks, those who were there at the time. So you can see the black smokes and flames, they are seen out of an oil depot from the Jaipur. So by this particular case study, we studied that this is, I mean, you can say the latest of in the fire and explosion accident. And again, by not observing the standard operating protocol, this kind of a major accident, they may take place in any kind of establishment. Thank you very much.